Do you realize that means marriage? She asked the human with a grin. HFY Sci-Fi Story, HFY Stories. Aaron Hale had never planned to become important. He was an engineer, not a diplomat. He fixed things that broke. He tightened bolts, rerouted power, and kept machines alive so other people could argue about politics in clean rooms with soft lighting. On Caro's station, the largest mixed-species trade hub in the Orion Reach, that meant long shifts, little sleep, and very little attention, which was exactly how Aaron liked it. The station was older than most of the species living on it. Its core systems were a layered mess of alien logic, human patches, and emergency fixes done by beings who no longer existed. Keeping it stable was a full-time job for hundreds of engineers. When alarms sounded, Aaron ran toward the problem instead of away from it, toolbox in hand, mind already sorting causes and solutions. So when the lights flickered and the emergency sirens howled through the central ring, Aaron did not panic. He swore quietly, grabbed his kit, and sprinted. The alert came through his wrist display as he ran. Primary power conduit overload. Sector 9. Security lockdown active. Non-essential personnel evacuate. Sector 9 was not a place you evacuated from casually. It was where several species had insisted on placing critical systems close to diplomatic chambers. If the conduit blew, half the station would go dark. Life support would follow. Aaron slid around a corner and nearly collided with a tall, armored figure. She moved faster than he expected. One clawed hand caught his shoulder and steadied him before he could fall. "Human," she said, voice sharp and controlled. "This sector is sealed." "I know," Aaron replied, already pulling free. "I work here." She studied him with glowing eyes set in a face of smooth, dark plating. Commander Zelthira of the Velari Defense Fleet. Everyone on the station knew her. She was respected, feared, even, and she was blocking the shortest route to the failing conduit. "You are unarmed," she said. "This is a dangerous zone." Aaron pointed at the smoke drifting from a side corridor. "So is the entire station if that conduit goes." Another tremor shook the deck beneath their feet. Somewhere deep in the walls, something screamed under pressure. Zelthira hesitated for half a second, then she nodded once. "Stay close," she said. "If you slow me down, I will leave you behind." "Fair," Aaron said and ran. The corridor ahead was a mess of flickering lights and warped panels. Heat rolled through the air in waves. The smell of burning insulation stung his nose. The conduit chamber doors were half open, forced apart by internal pressure. Inside, the main line pulsed with unstable energy, arcs of blue-white electricity snapping against containment fields that were already failing. Aaron felt his stomach tighten. If the line ruptured, it would vaporize everything in the room. Zelthira stepped forward without hesitation, her armored limbs locking into place as she reached for the emergency dampening controls. The panel sparked violently, throwing her back a step. "The stabilizers are offline," she said. "Manual override is required." Aaron was already moving. "I'll reroute from the auxiliary feed, but I need to get behind the housing." "That area is not shielded," she said. "You will be exposed." He glanced at the conduit, then back at her. "If I don't, the station dies." Another surge rocked the chamber. A warning tone rose in pitch, screaming urgency. Zelthira watched him for a long moment. Then she reached out and placed one heavy hand against the conduit housing, bracing it. "I will hold the containment field," she said. "You will have 90 seconds." Aaron did not ask how she planned to survive that. He just nodded and climbed. The metal was hot enough to burn through gloves. He ignored it. His fingers moved fast, guided by training and instinct. He bypassed fried circuits, cut power where it needed to die, forced open access points that had not been touched in decades. The conduit screamed louder. Behind him, Zelthira grunted as energy hammered against her armor. Sparks crawled over her body like living things. "Hurry, human," she growled. "I'm trying," Aaron said, voice tight. The auxiliary feed resisted him, ancient alien locks refusing human input. He pulled a small device from his kit and jammed it into the port. The screen flickered, then stabilized. 40 seconds. Aaron rerouted the flow, bleeding excess energy into secondary systems that could take the load. The screaming dropped to a roar. 20 seconds. The containment field stabilized. The arcs vanished. The chamber lights steadied. 10 seconds. Aaron sealed the housing and dropped to the floor, breathing hard. Zelthira removed her hand slowly. Her armor smoked, scorched, and cracked in places, but she was standing. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then the station-wide alert ended. The silence that followed felt unreal. "You should not have survived that," Zelthira said. Aaron sat up, wincing. "You held the field, I just did my job." She tilted her head, studying him in a way that made him suddenly uncomfortable. "You risked your life," she said. "Without hesitation." He shrugged. "Someone had to." Station security flooded the chamber seconds later. Medics followed. Questions were shouted, reports demanded. Aaron answered what he could. Then someone pulled him aside to check his burns. Zelthira did not leave. Hours later, in the Central Forum, the incident was reviewed by station authorities and representatives from multiple species. The failure had nearly triggered a mass casualty event. Lives had been saved. Aaron stood near the back, tired and sore, half listening as officials praised cooperation and bravery. Then Zelthira stepped forward. Her presence silenced the room. "In accordance with Velari tradition," she said, voice clear and strong, "I formally acknowledge the bond established during the defense of shared life systems." Aaron frowned. That did not sound like a standard report. She turned toward him. Her eyes glowed brighter and her mouth curved into what he had learned was a Velari grin. "Do you realize," she said, "that means marriage?" The room exploded into noise. Aaron felt every eye snap toward him. His brain refused to process the words. "Marriage?" he repeated stupidly. "Yes," Zelthira said. "You placed yourself between me and death. You trusted me with your life while I trusted you with mine. Under Velari law, that is a binding declaration." Someone laughed, then stopped when the station legal AI spoke. "Confirmed," the AI said. "Velari bonding protocols apply. Contract recognized under interspecies law." The laughter died completely. Aaron's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "I was fixing a power line," he said. Zelthira's grin widened. "So you say?" The council chamber erupted into argument. Officials shouted. Lawyers demanded delays. Diplomats whispered urgently into translators. Aaron stood there, heart pounding, realizing that somewhere between rerouting power and saving a station, his quiet life had just ended. And the galaxy had noticed humanity in a way it never had before. The noise did not stop when the chamber cleared. If anything, it grew louder. Aaron Hale sat in a small waiting room outside the main council hall, staring at the floor while voices echoed through the walls. He could not understand most of the words, but he understood the tone. Angry, confused, alarmed, marriage. The words still felt unreal. He pressed his burned hands together slowly, feeling the sting, grounding himself. This had to be a mistake. Some cultural misunderstanding that would be cleared up with a form, an apology, and maybe a very awkward story to tell later. The door slid open. Commander Zelthira entered with the same calm confidence she carried into battle. Her armor had been repaired, polished until it reflected the lights. She looked completely at ease. Aaron looked up. "This isn't funny." Her eyes softened just slightly. "I did not intend it to be." "You can't just—" He stopped, took a breath. "I didn't agree to anything." She stepped closer but kept a respectful distance. "You did not refuse." "That's not how humans—" He stopped again. "Look, where I come from, marriage is a choice. You talk about it, you ask. You don't spring it on someone in front of half the galaxy." Zelthira tilted her head. "Interesting?" "That's it," Aaron asked. "Interesting?" "Yes," she said calmly. "Your people bind themselves by conversation, not by action. Most species do not. Before Aaron could respond, the door opened again. Two station officials entered, followed by a thin, floating projection of the station's legal AI. "Engineer Hale," one of them said. "Commander Zelthira, the council requires your presence." Aaron stood slowly. His legs felt heavy. The council chamber was packed. Representatives from dozens of species filled the seats, their translators humming softly. Some stared at Aaron with open curiosity, others with suspicion, a few with something close to fear. He had never been important before. At the center of the chamber, the legal AI spoke. "The matter before this council concerns the recognition of a Velari bond formed during an emergency defense event," it said. "The human participant disputes intent." Aaron swallowed. A tall, insect-like delegate leaned forward. "Humans are fragile," it said bluntly. "Short-lived, emotionally unstable. Allowing a permanent bond with a Velari commander sets a dangerous precedent." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Aaron clenched his fists. Zelthira did not react at all. Another delegate spoke. "Humans form bonds easily, then abandon them. Their alliances shift with convenience." "That's not true," Aaron said before he could stop himself. The room fell silent. He took a breath and continued, his voice steady despite his pounding heart. "Humans don't bond easily. We bond carefully. When we say we'll stand with someone, we mean it, but we don't do it by accident." The insect delegate's antennae twitched. "Yet you risked your life." "Yes," Aaron said, "because lives were at stake. That's what you do when something matters." "And marriage does not matter?" another voice asked. Aaron looked up at a being of smooth crystal and light. "It matters more than almost anything. That's why it has to be chosen." The chamber buzzed with quiet discussion. Zelthira finally spoke. "Humans choose to bond even without biological compulsion. That is rare." A reptilian delegate snorted. "Or foolish." Aaron turned toward it. "Maybe, but we stay, even when it's hard, even when it hurts." The legal AI processed for a moment. "The council requires evidence of human bonding stability," it said. "Claims alone are insufficient." A ripple of tension passed through the room. "Evidence?" Aaron asked. "Yes," the AI replied. "Under pressure." The lights dimmed slightly as a new projection appeared. A remote system, a hostile frontier world, thin atmosphere, unstable terrain. "A joint trial," the AI continued. "Survival, cooperation, and command under stress. The bond will be evaluated through action." Aaron's stomach dropped. "That's a death sentence," someone whispered. Zelthira's lips curved into a small, sharp smile. "Acceptable." Aaron stared at her. "You're serious?" She met his eyes. "You said humans choose commitment. This is your choice." The council chamber waited. Aaron thought of Earth, of quiet maintenance shifts, of a life where his biggest worry was a failing conduit. He thought of the station going dark, of Zelthira holding the line while energy tried to tear her apart. He straightened. "Fine," he said. "We'll do it." The trial world was worse than the projections. The air was thin and cold. The sky was a dull gray, heavy with static storms. Their equipment drop was minimal by design. No rescue unless both participants failed. As soon as they landed, the ground shook. "Unstable tectonics," Zelthira said calmly. "We must move." Aaron adjusted his pack. "Lead the way." They traveled across jagged rock fields and narrow ridges, sharing information constantly. Zelthira was stronger, faster. Aaron compensated with planning, mapping safe paths, rationing supplies. When predators emerged from the mist, Zelthira drove them back. When equipment failed, Aaron repaired it with shaking hands and borrowed parts. Hours turned into days. They slept in shifts, ate carefully, trusted each other without discussion. On the fourth day, disaster struck. A storm hit without warning. Winds screamed across the plain, tearing at their shelter. The ground split open nearby, swallowing supplies. Aaron was thrown hard against the rocks. Pain exploded through his side. Zelthira reached him instantly. "You are injured." "I can move," he said through clenched teeth. She scanned him. "Your internal damage is severe." "Then we move anyway," Aaron said. "If we stay, we die." The storm worsened. Visibility dropped to nothing. At one point, Zelthira slipped, nearly falling into a WIDENING Chinese letter. Aaron grabbed her arm and anchored himself against the rocks, muscles screaming. "Let go," she ordered. "You cannot hold me." "I can," he said. "I will." She stared at him, shocked. He did not let go. When the storm finally passed, they were both bleeding, exhausted, alive. They reached the extraction beacon hours later. Aaron collapsed as soon as it activated. Back on the station, the council watched the recordings in silence. No speeches followed. No arguments. The legal AI spoke softly. Bond stability confirmed. The chamber remained quiet. Zelthira turned to Aaron as medics worked around him. Her grin was gone. In its place was something deeper, respect. "You chose," she said. Aaron managed a weak smile. "Humans do that." Across the chamber, something shifted. Humanity was no longer seen as weak. It was seen as something far more dangerous, because humans did not bond by instinct. They bonded by choice, and they did not walk away. The council did not end the matter. If anything, it made it worse. After the trial recordings were reviewed, the chamber filled with a new kind of tension. It was not doubt anymore. It was calculation. Species that had ignored humans for decades were suddenly paying attention, and attention in the galaxy was rarely friendly. Aaron Hale lay in a recovery room staring at the ceiling while machines hummed softly around him. His ribs were healing. His muscles ached. His body felt like it belonged to someone else. His mind was worse. He had survived a world that was supposed to kill him. He had proven something he never meant to prove, and now humanity was being measured because of him. Zelthira stood near the window, arms folded behind her back. She had been there since he woke up, silent, watchful. "You don't have to stay," Aaron said quietly. "I choose to," she replied. He glanced at her. That word again. Outside the room, voices argued. The council had recessed, but negotiations were happening everywhere. Messages flowed between systems. Analysts spoke in careful tones. Humans were being discussed as a variable. Aaron did not like that. When he was cleared to walk, Zelthira escorted him through corridors that felt suddenly unfamiliar. People stared openly now. Some stepped aside, others whispered. "This is getting out of control," Aaron muttered. "Yes," Zelthira agreed. "It is." They entered a secure meeting chamber. Inside waited several council representatives and a projection of the legal AI. The mood was tight. "The bond is recognized," the AI said. "However, secondary consequences require evaluation." A tall avian delegate spoke first. "Commander Zelthira holds significant military authority. A bonded human gains indirect influence." "I don't want influence," Aaron said flatly. "I want to go back to my job." A scaled delegate leaned forward. "Humans say many things." Zelthira's eyes narrowed slightly. "He has not lied." "That is the concern," the delegate replied. "Humans appear consistent." The word carried weight. Another delegate activated a display. It showed human history, alliances, wars, recoveries, rebuilding after disasters that wiped out entire cities. "Humans endure," the delegate said. "They rebuild without external compulsion. They remain bonded to causes long after logic suggests abandonment." Aaron watched in silence. This was not how he wanted his species described, like a problem that refused to go away. "The fear," the avian delegate continued, "is not human weakness, it is human persistence." The room went quiet, the AI processed. "Recommendation, controlled observation." Aaron frowned. "Observation of what?" "Of humans under pressure," the AI replied. "At scale." Zelthira stepped forward. "You intend to provoke them." "No," the AI said. "We intend to understand them." The council authorized a test deployment. a border colony recently destabilized by pirate activity and failing infrastructure would receive human support teams. Engineers, medics, logistics experts, no soldiers. The goal was simple: see if humans stayed when conditions worsened. Aaron felt his jaw tighten. You're using them. Yes, the AI said calmly, as you were used. That night Aaron sat alone in his quarters, staring at a message queue filled with human names. Volunteers, thousands of them. No orders had been issued. Humans had simply heard there was a problem. Zelthira entered quietly. They are coming. Of course they are, Aaron said. We always do. The colony was worse than expected. Power grids were unstable. Food supplies were low. Pirate raids had left scars everywhere. Local species were wary, watching the arriving human ships with open distrust. Aaron worked non-stop. He organized repairs, trained locals, rerouted systems. Humans spread through the settlement like living tools, fixing what they could, sharing what they had. When pirates returned, humans did not fight. They evacuated civilians, hid supplies, repaired shelters under fire. Losses happened, not deaths but injuries, trauma, exhaustion. Still no one left. Weeks passed. Observers sent reports back to the council. The tone shifted slowly, then all at once. Humans stayed after the mission parameters ended. They stayed after supplies ran low. They stayed when escape routes reopened. They stayed because people still needed help. A pirate leader eventually approached under a white signal flag. He expected threats. Instead, a human engineer offered to fix his ship's failing reactor in exchange for leaving the colony alone. The pirate agreed. The raid stopped. When the council reconvened, the recordings played without commentary. Humans working, arguing, laughing, crying, continuing. The AI spoke last. Conclusion: human bonding extends beyond individuals. Humans bond to responsibility. No one argued. Zelthira turned to Aaron during the recess. You did not tell me this part. I didn't know how, he said. We don't really talk about it. Why? She asked. He thought for a moment. Because if you say it out loud, it sounds foolish. She studied him. Foolishness that reshapes systems is not foolish. A final complication arrived before the council could issue its decision. A hostile power demanded clarification. If humans were now considered stable, bonded allies, then treaties would shift. Power balances would move. Someone asked the question everyone had avoided. What happens when a human bond is threatened? The council looked at Aaron. He felt tired, older than he should. We respond, he said simply, together. Zelthira placed a hand on his shoulder, a public gesture among her people. The message spread faster than any official statement. Across the galaxy, species began reconsidering how they dealt with humans, not as expendable allies, not as weak newcomers, but as beings who, once committed, could not be easily pushed away. Aaron stood in the chamber as the council prepared its final ruling, realizing something frightening. Humanity had passed every test. And now the galaxy had to decide what to do with a species that did not know how to quit. The final ruling took 3 days, not because the council could not decide, but because they were afraid of what the decision would change. Aaron Hale waited in silence as the galaxy argued around him. He stood in the central chamber beside Zelthira, surrounded by beings who once saw humans as temporary allies at best, disposable labor at worst. Now those same beings spoke carefully, choosing words the way one chose weapons. Humanity had passed every test. That was the problem. The evidence is clear, said the avian delegate at last. Humans do not retreat from responsibility. They attach themselves to failure and refuse to abandon it, another added. That behavior is destabilizing, a third voice argued. It creates dependency. Aaron could not stay quiet anymore. It creates trust, he said. The chamber fell still. You fear us, he continued, voice steady but tired. Not because we're strong, not because we're violent. You fear us because once we say yes, we don't know how to say no. A murmur spread through the room. Zelthira watched him closely. She did not interrupt. "We don't bond because law forces us," Aaron said. "We bond because walking away costs more than staying. We choose that cost." The legal AI spoke after a long pause. Final recommendation prepared. Light filled the chamber as the ruling displayed. Human bonding practices were formally recognized as a stabilizing force. Humans were reclassified from limited-term contributors to persistent allies. Interspecies contracts involving humans could not assume withdrawal under stress. And finally, the Velari bond was upheld without reservation. The chamber reacted in shock, relief, and quiet fear. The ruling did not make humans rulers, it made them anchors. Zelthira turned to Aaron, her expression unreadable. "It is finished." He exhaled slowly. "Good." The galaxy did not change overnight, but it started to lean. Requests came in from systems on the edge of collapse, not for soldiers, for engineers, teachers, doctors. Humans arrived, not in fleets, but in small ships filled with stubborn people who fixed problems and refused to leave them half-done. Treaties became longer. Planning became slower, because humans asked uncomfortable questions. What happens after? Weeks after the ruling, she met Aaron on a quiet observation deck overlooking the station. Traffic moved slowly outside, ships from a dozen species passing without urgency. "You have altered balance without firing a weapon," she said. Aaron leaned on the rail. "Wasn't trying to." "Intent does not lessen impact," she replied. Then she hesitated. "There is still one matter unresolved." He looked at her. "Let me guess, the marriage part." Her eyes gleamed faintly. "Yes." "For the record," Aaron said carefully, "I still think it's unfair that I proposed by accident." She made a soft sound that might have been laughter. "For the record, Velari law allows reconsideration once both parties understand the bond fully." He straightened. "It does." "Yes." They stood in silence for a long moment. "Back on the trial world," Zelthira said, "you held onto me when logic said you should let go." "You would have done the same," Aaron replied. "Yes," she agreed, "because the bond required it." Aaron shook his head. "I didn't do it because of the bond." She turned toward him slowly. "Then why?" "Because leaving someone to fall when you can stop it changes who you are," he said. "And humans don't like becoming people we can't live with." Zelthira studied him in a way that had nothing to do with law or tradition. "Then I will ask again," she said, softer now. "Without ceremony, without witnesses, do you realize what marriage means?" Aaron met her gaze. "It means you stay," he said, "even when it's hard." "Especially then." She smiled, not the sharp grin of before, but something quieter. "Then I accept," she said. "The announcement was not public. It did not need to be." The galaxy noticed anyway. In the months that followed, a phrase spread through trade lanes and council halls. It was not official, it was not flattering, it was accurate. Never test a human bond. Because humans did not escalate quickly, they escalated forever. Aaron returned to engineering mostly. He still fixed broken systems, still crawled through maintenance shafts, still cursed old wiring. The difference was that when something broke now, someone always asked, "Should we call the humans?" And when the humans came, they stayed until the problem stopped existing. Not until it looked better, not until it was manageable, until it was done. Zelthira took on a new role as liaison between Velari Command and human coordinators. She learned human habits, their jokes, their strange ability to argue while working toward the same goal. She learned that humans complained constantly but rarely quit. She learned that their promises were quiet and terrifying. One day, as they watched another joint project come online, she asked Aaron a question. "Do humans ever regret bonding?" He thought about it. "Yes," he said. "All the time," she frowned. "Then why continue?" "Because regret means you cared," he replied, "and caring means it mattered." She nodded slowly. The galaxy adjusted, slowly, carefully, because a species that bonded by choice, not instinct, could not be controlled easily. only trusted, and trust, once given to humans, tended to grow roots. Aaron Hale never became famous. He did not want to be, but his name appeared in council archives, attached to a footnote that quietly reshaped history. First recorded case of human persistence altering interstellar law. He still didn't think he was important. He was just a human who fixed what broke, and once he fixed it, he stayed.